his people in Enfield. David Cameron, meantime, also back early from his holidays. He's reiterated that those convicted of rioting or looting will face the full force of the law. Here with me to discuss that is the Director of Target Against Gangs, Sheldon Thomas, and also ex-gang member Gavin McKenna. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us here on Sky News this afternoon. Gavin, can I talk to you first of all? What do you make of what's been happening over the last 4 nights?
Shocking, understandable at the same time. To a certain degree, not that I don't agree with the innocent people getting affected by the blowing up of businesses and homes, but I can understand there's a certain amount of resentment, kind of anger, frustration. So I'm sincere to those who are a bit suffering, and my heart also goes out to the young people involved, because they don't really have a clue. They don't really know nothing else. Not to say that that's good what they're doing, but I am shocked. I'm very shocked, and I'm quite hurt as well, because London's what I call home.
Why are they doing it?
Personally, I think, like I was saying with Sheldon, living that life once myself, I had no guidance. I never really had much of a moral, as they say. I never really got taught. My mum, I just wanted to honour her because she tried her best, but I kind of went my own way, and I didn't want to learn, I didn't want to listen, and I just did my own thing, and I didn't riot, but I did cause havoc, and I just had no care for no one. And I can only speak for myself in that situation and others that was like me, but some of them, they're just taking an opportunity to do what they want to do.
Why did you behave the way that you did? Was it because you wanted to belong, or was it because you were taking drugs? What was it?
Drugs did affect me a bit. I wasn't obviously myself, but I think at the same time I was very bitter and I was resentful.
About what?
My father, who was a very abusive man. So, and I kind of was longing for that. I was playing football, like there's dads on the side and it's just my mum. And I really did. I think as a guy, I was seeking that father. I wanted it. I heard people talk about it. I wanted it. And he did a lot of things that I can't really say, but it was detrimental to who I became. And I think with that, I was very hurt, bitter, and I was holding it in. I had no one to let it out, and I felt, like you said, I didn't belong, and I just wanted to belong. And it wasn't a choice I made, but it was the effect of my dad that influenced my choice into joining a gang. And
what did you do?
When I was in a gang, what did I do? I was facing jail for 7 years for something that apparently someone got stabbed. I held a gun before, took drugs, fighting people, abused my family, abused drugs. I didn't care about schooling, women, myself. I robbed people, broke into houses. I did silly things that I'm not proud of now.
What changed?
I'm a born-again Christian. I'm a father to a 3-year-old son, and I almost died in front of my mum at 16. Someone tried to stab me in front of her, and my little sister was crying, and I guess the heart, it caught up with me, you know. And then when I became a Christian, I learned that I can let out my feelings, and I met people like Sheldon that took that father role in my life, and that showed me.
How did you find God? Was that in jail, or?
Oh no, sorry. It was I was at some kind of probation kind of thing, and a guy from Tottenham, I met him, and we started hanging around together. And it just carried on, and then one day he said, I'm changing, I want to go to church. And considering that was the only friend I had at the time, I just went with him. And the pastor spoke on the word about positive voices and negative voices in our life. And I kind of cried a bit, because I realized at that moment, at 19 years old, all I've ever had is negative. And I went home, I was like, I want to be a Christian, and my family, they kind of laughed it off, like whatever. So
given what you'd been up to before?
Yeah, right, it must be a joke. And that was a negative. Went back to church, I said, look, this ain't going to work for me, you know. And the pastor placed his hand on my shoulder and said, no, there's a hope here for you. And I just broke down. I started crying like a baby. I said, look, I don't want to go back to that life. You're promising me that things will change. Can you help me? And I thank God, 1.5 years down the line, I'm still here now.
Is that because somebody showed you that they loved you?
That's all it was. And that I could be somebody.
Heard this story before, Sheldon, many times, I'm sure, with different people.
I mean, part of the problem is that some of the young people involved in this lifestyle and what we saw over the last 4 days is coming from exactly the same kind of background. You know, we're growing in a society where I think David Cameron doesn't understand that the cutbacks that he's done, that his policies have introduced, i.e. the cutbacks, the lack of apprenticeships, the lack of hope, has kind of bred an underclass in this society. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not justifying violence or looting or attempted murder or anything like that. What we're saying is that you've got to look behind why some of these young people, we're talking about 10, 11 and 12-year-old young men who were involved in criminal activity. This wasn't just by chance. This has been brewing for some time. And I think what happens is politicians are so distant from the community, the local community, and our community leaders are so distant from it, where TAG fills in that gap in the sense of the way we are dealing with some of these kind of hardcore gangsters. We've realised that these guys are coming from broken homes, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but if you've grown up in a society where your mum's a teenage mum, so she had the child at 14, she then has another child for a different man at another age, that child grows up with no father in the house. He has no moral understanding, no discipline, because the mother herself was a teenager when she had him. It makes it difficult for that young man to kind of find his feet, because he's got no real sense of direction. But then, if you couple that with the whole estate or the whole area growing up in that same environment, and on top of it, the cutbacks that David Cameron's government has introduced, many redundancies, lack of real hope, and some of the guys we're speaking to on the streets are saying that the Olympics, which was supposed to offer this sort of glimmer of hope, i.e. apprenticeships, never materialised. So some of these guys are like, well, if the Olympics can't offer us a way out, what else can we do? Now, again, I want people to not judge what we're saying and be upset by what we're saying. I want us to look behind these guys and understand that if you have a broken society or broken family, then there's no way on earth can you then turn around to those same broken families and say, we need you to take control of your children. Because a broken family can't take control of the children, because most of these mothers are scared of the children. We know we're working with young men that beat up their mums, that bully up their mums, that intimidate their mums. We're talking about men that are 5'9", 5'7", big, muscly guys who intimidate their mums to the point where their mum just rather sees them out the house than put up with the kind of problems they're going to give inside the house. Now, again,
what's happened for that child to have so little respect for her mother, for their mother, that they will behave
because
in that way?
Because they've seen the mum being abused by other men. They've seen in Gavin's case, you know, it's the same things happened in his life. When you see constant abuse on the woman in your life, which happens to be your mum, you then think, well, that's normal way of life. You begin to kind of take on board, well, that's standard because he's seen the abuse in the house. This is domestic violence. So what I'm saying is this, is our organisation, what we do, we look behind. The reason why we have so many success with, and the success of Gavin and many others like Gavin, is because we look behind the person, the anger, the facade, the gun, the knife, the drugs. We look behind all of that. And we look and realise that each of these young people are young children, vulnerable. Most of these children are exploited, manipulated by older gang members who, again, where the enforcement should come in to deal with the older gang members, they don't, because there's not enough intel on them. So our work is about dealing with the vulnerability about these guys. We don't look at the surface, which is the looting, the robberies, the fires. We don't look at that. That's surface. And another thing we got to question.
You say it's surface, you know, but it really frightens and intimidates a lot of people who don't come from broken homes, who have worked hard to achieve what they have. You know, we spoke to a chap yesterday who'd worked, you know, 20 hours a day for 10 years to build up his restaurant business. It was pogged by kids who really should have known better. And
as Gavin said, we send out our prayers to that family, and we totally accept that. What we have realised is that in the last 2 years, we've had over 20 murders in our inner city estates. I've never seen the government ever cry over that. I've never seen the government actually have this kind of profile in the way they're saying, we need to look at what's going on with our young people. We live in areas where young people are stabbed, shot, and girls are gang raped on a regular basis. And yet, because of the looting over the last 4 days, which we totally are against, we have seen more people cry over material things than the life of a young person. I've gone to so many funerals of young people who have died at the age of 14 for being shot, who've died at the age of 16 for not selling the right drugs, so the drug dealer comes in and gets involved and does some damage to that person. We've seen girls being gang raped on a frequent basis, but yet Boris Johnson, David Cameron has never, ever raised the profile of how are we going to deal with this culture of violence that is going on in our inner city estates. We cannot be a society that put material goods as far more important than the life of a young man who dies at the hands of another young man.
Are we not talking about two very separate issues? I haven't forgotten you. I'm going to come back to you in just a second. But have we not rather forgotten that there are two separate issues? One of them is that certainly what you're saying, we very much appreciate that young people are being killed, and it looks as though it's perhaps two tiers. As there are more tiers over some than there are over others. I hear that. But when I was in Ealing yesterday, a lot of the people were saying the kids that were there had their new trainers on, had their iPhones, had their Blackberries, and they were just communicating with each other. So those young people, many of the young people that are rioting at the moment are not necessarily because of those circumstances that you're talking about.
I would disagree with that. I think Ealing's a very small sample figure here, because most of the boroughs, if you looked at the boroughs it took place, apart from Ealing and Clapham, which is a well-to-do areas, most of them, Croydon has got good parts and got bad parts. Peckham, Brixton has
all
still
London
got,
boroughs
yeah,
will have.
has got, but some worse than some.
Yes.
And so my thing is this: I'm not in any way saying for 1 second that what happened over the last 4 days is any justification here. What we're saying is that we as people.
What I'm asking you is there any connection though? And from what we saw, there isn't necessarily.
I think. Not necessarily. I think what you find is you're going to find, as me and Gavin spoke about, young people just participating for the sake of it. We agree. I accept that. And I accept there's going to be a lot of young people that just did it for the fun of it. But also, in line with that, because of the nature of our work and the young people we work with, unlike other organisations, we work with a lot of hardcore gangsters or so-called gangsters. And many of them are coming from a background which is very similar to Gavin and some worse than Gavin's, where I can't just look at the surface, but I've got to look behind the person, look at the heart of the man, and look behind his and the mindset. That's why we've developed programs specifically challenging them to think about their behaviour. Rather than we say to them, stop selling drugs, we get them to understand and recognise the damage drugs does, which then makes them want to stop selling drugs on their own fruition. We think that it's far better for us to have a society where hope is the main focus here, where young people have aspirations. At this present moment in time, we can't say to these young people, for sure, there's plenty of jobs out there, there isn't. We can't say there's no apprenticeships, there isn't.
Yeah. And
we certainly are not saying to school leavers, if you do well in school, you're going to come out to a great job. So we've got to understand, if you don't present them with opportunities...
But you don't have to be an underprivileged black kid for that to be the case, though,
definitely
do you?
not.
OK, I just want to come back...
Yeah,
of course. I want to come back to Gavin as well, though. Tell me about your life now.
Like I said, I'm born-again Christian, studying at university.
What are you studying?
Greenwich, sports science.
Fantastic.
Look after my son when the time...
He's 3?
3, yeah.
What's his name?
Kai.
Kai.
I play football, working with the gangs, mentoring, training council staff, parents, doing outreach work, and really got a heart for the community now and the lost. So I guess that's basic. Just to wrap it up, that's what I do everyday life.
What are your hopes for the future?
That I can change London and the world. I want to change. I think I want to stand up for the young people, you know. And I think, like you rightly said, I agree 100% that, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Some kids, they're just doing it because they want to do it, because they can do it. Like, I always use this example. I know a guy, and this is the main drive. I know one guy, 5-bedroom house, mum and dad business people, but he's out there with a gun, a knife, trying to make money and kill people. Now, I always touch on myself because I live, like I said, I honour my mum and she done her best, and I just want to say I love her. But we did live rough at times, and that's just life, and it made me the man I am today. So I do thank God and my mum for that. And this guy, he's got everything, but yet he still wants more. Right. And it's because he does have friends that are driven to, like, if you look in Africa, kids kill to survive. In England, there's no need for that.
That's right.
We're going to run out of time, but respect for your mum now, yeah?
All the time.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. Gavin, Sheldon, both. Thank you very much indeed for chatting to us. Really appreciate it. Thank you. News at sky.com, 84501. Business News is next.